Now, the reason that this lecture is not called aggravations is because there are so many things that happen after a remedy is given which are not aggravations. Yeah? And it's very, very important to delineate and understand which things are aggravations, which things are not aggravations, and how to put them in perspective, because if you don't understand the theory, then you're not going to know how to interpret the events that occur. Okay, scenario. You give a remedy and something happens to the patient. And the new prescriber, naturally assuming that it's an aggravation, reassures the patient, oh, that chest pain is just an aggravation, just relax and live through it, and then you're going to be feeling so much better. And the patient calls back again, and the chest pain's gotten a little bit worse. No, it's an aggravation, it's just going to go away in a few days, and then the third day the patient doesn't call, but the wife calls, and the patient expired from a cardiac arrest. I'm telling you real events that have occurred. A patient hears that they're going to have a severe aggravation, and so never takes the homeopathic remedy after they're prescribed. Because we haven't explained to them, not knowing ourselves, what the extent of the aggravation is likely to be for their particular case. Another scenario. The patient calls back after taking the remedy, and they had a car accident 3 days later after taking the remedy, and they say that it's because they're having an aggravation. Now, you owe me $1,500 to repair my car because it's all a result of your homeopathic remedy. So all these things that can happen after the remedy, if we don't know what the extent of our liability is, or which things are under the power of a remedy to produce or create, or then we can get into problems. There are 4 possible things that can occur after you give a remedy. Reactions which are due to the remedy. Reactions or occurrences which are coincidental to the remedy. Reactions that are due to the patient's expectation, or what we could call a placebo aggravation. And 4th, reactions which are due to treatment but are not reactions to the remedy. For example, just patients stop taking their allopathic medications when they start their homeopathic treatment, and they go into withdrawal syndromes from their allopathic medication withdrawal and think that it's an aggravation, but actually it's a withdrawal symptom. It matters little what may be scientific explanation of how it takes place, and I do not attach much importance to the attempts made to explain it. But the following view seems to commend itself as the most probable one and is founded on the premises derived from experience. Hahnemann's idea of how cure takes place. We have a natural disease which is in the body that the life force is completely a homeostasis with. It's in a balance point. Then a stronger disease comes into the body. The vital force always turns its full attention to the stronger disease. So this stronger disease, artificial disease, i.e. iatrogenic disease, that is the remedy, which is stronger than the natural disease, takes the full attention of the vital force away from the original disease, and all the focus is shifted to the stronger disease, which, being similar, i.e. the same as the original disease, extinguishes the weaker natural disease that was there. When 2 diseases coincide, if the diseases are dissimilar, then the vital force focuses on the stronger one, and then when when the stronger one goes away, it reverts back to the dissimilar disease. But if the two diseases are exactly similar, then it completely frees itself from the weaker disease and focuses only on the stronger disease. Because they are more or less identical, it can only focus on one disease at a time. And since the other one is exactly similar, it gets left out in the wash. It gets left out in the cold, because the vital force can only operate in one direction towards one disease. I'm not saying this is exactly what happens. I'm just saying this is what Hahnemann thought was happening. The body has basically forgotten that it's still in battle with this disease. It's created a no-win situation with this disease. When it focuses on the new disease, that is the remedy, then, which is stronger than the old disease, it focuses on that, and it increases its resistance to the new disease. But being similar, that completely evaporates the old disease, that is the natural disease that was there. And then the new disease, the drug disease, as soon as you stop giving the drug, it rapidly defervesces or goes away, and then leaving the organism in a state of health. Made his living for his very large family, as I was saying, through translations of mostly medical texts. As you know, he was fluent in 11 different languages, and he translated from ancient Greek, from Latin, from Spanish, from French, from German, from English. And he was translating at this time one of the most famous works, which was the Materia Medica of Cullen. Cullen was a famous English physician who had made his great life's work, his Materia Medica, his last edition of his Materia Medica, available about 1790, something like that. And in it he describes all of the known medicines of his age, of the late 18th century. Hahnemann was translating this book into German, the second edition into German, and in it was described by Cullen the remedy Peruvian bark, the medicine Peruvian bark, which is, of course, China, from which we derive quinine. Hahnemann completely disagreed with this. He said, well, if this was the reason, because it was bitter and tonic, then everything that is bitter and tonic, which are synonyms in this, at that time in medicine, a bitter and a tonic were the same thing, then all tonics should work to cure malaria. And he then listed in his translation all the known tonics that have no effect on malaria. He said, therefore, this cannot possibly be the explanation for how it works in malaria. Now, for some reason, he decided to try the China himself, to take it himself. He never really explained why he decided this. It had never been done in the history of medicine medicine had been practiced for 2,500 years and nobody had ever done that before. But it seems obvious now, but you can imagine if it hasn't been done, it wasn't obvious to him at the time. So here's what Hahnemann says of his taking of the Peruvian bark. He says, I took by way of experiment twice a day 4 drams of good china. My feet, finger ends, etc. at first became cold. I grew languid and drowsy. Then my heart began to palpitate and my pulse grew hard and small. Intolerable anxiety, trembling, but without cold rigor. Prostration throughout all my limbs. Then pulsation in my head, redness of my cheeks, thirst, and in short, all of these symptoms which are ordinarily characteristic of intermittent fever, malaria, made their appearance one after the other, yet without the peculiar chilly, shivering rigor, so forth. This paroxysm lasted 2 or 3 hours each time and recurred if I repeated this dose and not otherwise. I discontinued it and I was in good health. This proving was essentially the apple that fell on Newton's head. It was the same experience for Hahnemann as Newton's discovery of the law of gravity from the apple falling on his head, which probably is an apocryphal story, but in any case. It was due to this first experience, which occurred around 1790, 1791, that Hahnemann decided that this was a new method for understanding the medicinal properties of medications. And he wrote in 1796 and was published in a medical journal, a well-known medical journal of that time, something called Essay on a New Principle for Ascertaining Curative Powers of Drugs. And this article is considered the birth of homeopathy. 1796 has always been sort of the semi-official birthday of homeopathy. By 1805, Hahnemann published his first list of provings. These provings were done almost completely upon himself and his immediate family and a few friends. Yeah, his children all did provings, many provings. They all assisted in the early provings. It was published in 1805 under the title Fragmenta de Viribus Medicamentorium Positivis. It's in Latin, in case you didn't get it. And in it, there were provings of aconite, arnica, belladonna, camphor, causticum, capsicum, chamomilla, china, cocculus, copiva, cuprum digitalis drosera, Halebris, Hyoscyamus, ignatia, Ipecacuana, ledum, Miserium, nux vomica, opium, pulsatilla, rheum, stramonium, valerian, and veratrum. 26 remedies.